There's a certain power in numbers. For anyone who's seen mass gatherings of Jews, whether at the Kotel, or at a Siyum Hashas, or in the streets of Yerushalayim on Yom Yerushalayim, or on Tisha B'Av, or even at the Israel Day Parade in New York City, you know that there's this almost indescribable feeling of connectedness and of beauty and of holiness that overwhelms you, or at least I could say it overwhelms me. There's something special about the sight of lots and lots of Jews gathered together for positive things that gives a person faith in the Jewish nation and its prospects for the future. It's hard to even imagine what it must have been like when Moshe gathered together all of the Jewish people traveling through the desert, upwards of 3 million of them, for certain events and important moments. It must have been quite the sight to see. This week's Parsha of Kedoshim, the second Parsha we're going to read this week, describes one such moment. The opening of Kedoshim tells us, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, Hashem says to Moshe, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael, speak to the entire assembly of the Jewish people. V'amarta alihem, and say to them, Kedoshim to you, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem, you should be holy because I am holy. Moshe was instructed to gather the entirety of the Jewish people to teach them what was to come in this parsha in specific. The idea of speaking to Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, of gathering Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, is not so uncommon in the Torah. When it comes to the reaction to events like the report of the Meraglim, or the sin of the Misonanim, or falling of the Man, or the Korach rebellion, or even the appointment of Yoshua as the next leader of the Jewish people, the phrase is very common. However, when it comes to teaching the Jewish people mitzvos, the phrase is very rare. The Gemara in Eruvin outlines the normal procedure for teaching the Jewish people, which is that Hashem would teach Moshe, and then Moshe would teach each segment of the Jewish people separately. First he would teach Aaron, then Aaron's children, then the elders, and then other Jews. It even sounds from the Gemara like perhaps after each segment of the people was taught, they ended up standing next to Moshe to take part somehow in the teaching of the next segment of the Jewish people, but everyone was taught on their own. In our parsha, Moshe seems to circumvent the process entirely and teach all of the Jewish people at once, together, Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, no exceptions. As the Medrash Sifra, quoted by Rashi, says, Daber al Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael milamed shenemra parsha zu behakel. The pasuk very plainly teaches us that this parsha was said behakel, in a gathering of the entire Jewish people. Why? Mipnei sherov gufei Torah tluyin bo, because the majority of the precepts of the Torah hinge upon it, are connected to it, are dependent upon it. What was so special about this parsha and the mitzvahs contained therein that warranted a gathering of the entire Jewish people? What does it mean to say that this parsha is rov gufei Torah tluyin bo? The majority of Torah is dependent upon it, when there are many other parshios with important mitzvahs which the Jewish people were not gathered as one unit to hear. Our great teacher Nechama Leibovitz, Zechrona Livracha, outlines a number of answers to this question, and I'd like to mention just a few. Rav Eliyahu Mizrahi, who wrote the super commentary on Rashi, Turkey in the 15th century, says, Tzrichim lios kulam yachad, everyone had to be together. Shim tipol iktsasam shum safik bahalacha, yu ha'achirim meshivin lahem lo kach v'kach amar b'fnechem. So that if there was some doubt in the halachic teachings, other people could say to each other, isn't this what you heard? Isn't that what you heard? Our parsha is filled with many important mitzvahs, says the Mizrahi. Hashem wanted to maximize clarity and minimize the chances of errors when it came to these very significant mitzvahs. Therefore, he asked that everyone hear the same thing at the same time from the same person, so that people could teach each other and could check in with each other about their understanding, instead of everyone hearing it on their own and perhaps coming away with different understandings. We've all probably experienced the time in which we read something or heard something, and in discussing it with others, we realized that we each understood it differently. Well, there's a chance of that happening even in a mass gathering. The chances are reduced, since everyone hears the same words and the same intonations, and even if they walk away with slightly different perceptions, those differences are usually corrected on the spot before they have a chance to set into people's minds and behaviors, because everyone corrects each other. Rav Moshe Alshich lived in Tzfat in the 16th century, and his commentary to the Parsha takes a different approach to our question, focusing the need for every Jew's presence, not on the many mitzvahs contained later in the Parsha, Rov Gufei Torah Tluyin Bo, but on the very first pasuk and the very first mitzvah of Kedusha, of holiness, which it opens with, Kedoshim to you. The Alshich says, Lios Yisparach ba lahazir sa'adam al chasidus to Kedusha lidamus laboro. Once God was coming to command us about this awesome endeavor of being holy, of being pious, of being close to Hashem, Ra'av hine yesh bnei adam, toim miderach hasechel, be'omram ki lo kol adam ra'ui lekach v'zocha lazeh. Hashem realized that there are those who believe that Kedusha is reserved for the few, for the elite. Our Parsha asks us to be holy, to be like Hashem was holy. That's a very tall order. That is not something easy for us to achieve or even to wrap our heads around. In fact, as the Alshich points out, many have the misconception that Kedusha, holiness, is the province of the elites. They lead themselves to believe that it's the teachers and the rabbis, tzaddikim, tzidkaniot, that achieve holiness. This fallacy can cause a normal or average person to despair of even trying to achieve any holiness or any growth in Torah. Hashem very much wanted to correct that misconception. Hashem wanted to dispel the myth that Kedusha is reserved for the few and for the most pious. Hashem wanted every Jew to understand that they too are able to and expected to rise to levels of Kedusha in their own way, in their own time, and come close to Hashem. Therefore, he asked that the Parsha, with its command to be holy, be taught to the entire Jewish people at once, so that everyone would realize that the goal is attainable by the lowest woodchoppers as much as by Aaron and Moshe and Miriam. There's one more commentary, that of the Sefer Ma'or Vashemesh, that I would like to share with you today, because to me, it is most moving and most instructive in terms of my own understanding of growth in Torah and in Kedusha. The Sefer Ma'or Vashemesh is a Hasidic commentary to the Torah, written by Reb Klonimus Kalman Halevi Epstein, who died in 1825. He was a student of the Noam Elimelech, Reb Elimelech Weisblum of Lezhensk, who was the originator of Hasidus in Poland, also the namesake of my son, Avishai Noam. Like the Alshich before him, the Ma'or Vashemesh, the student of Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk, also ties the need for this gathering to be called Kol Adas Yisrael, to everyone at once, to the opening command of Kedusha, rather than the rest of the mitzvos in the Parsha, but deviates from the Alshich in terms of the messages it was meant to convey. The Ma'or Vashemesh says that people think that to achieve Kedusha, you need to run away from any bad influences. You need to run to isolation for fear of what might bring you down. You need to run into a forest or someplace where people will not taint your mind and your character. Kedoshim natzel mideos raos mimasim raim, to save yourself from the evil ideas and from the evil people. While to some degree that might be true, it certainly is appropriate to some degree. Kedusha, says the Ma'or Vashemesh, cannot be achieved in that way alone. We don't achieve Kedusha by running away from the bad influences alone, but we achieve Kedusha by simultaneously running towards the good. He says, Achzos eino moil, it's not enough to run away. That only helps to prevent the things from bringing you down. To achieve the highest levels of holiness. You can't achieve Kedusha until you stick yourself, you cleave yourself, you cling to other people who are holy. Ovdei Hashem be'emes, true people who serve God. Ulishtatef imayim yachad be'avoda rabba, and to join them and be with them in the service of God. Lefi rov ha'am hamiskabsim yachad lasok be'avodas Hashem, the more people gather together to engage with Kedusha together, the more Hashem's Spirit dwells within them. Parsha Zoshel Kedoshim to you, Behakel. This Parsha, which teaches about holiness, has to be taught to everyone at once. Hainu, to teach us. She'i efshar la'adam, she'yizke el ha'kedusha, ela im ken sheyeh b'knesiya yachad am Hakal ba'avodas Hashem. It's impossible to achieve that Kedusha unless you are gathered together as one. To achieve true Kedusha, we need to run. We need to run to be with good people. Kedusha is achieved when all come together in common purpose, united by common values and sincerity and truth and a desire to be close to Hashem. Kedusha is achieved in community. The Parsha of Kedusha, therefore, had to be taught in front of the community. Kol Adas B'nai Israel, all gathered together, all as one, to show that it is through community which Kedusha is achieved. Being part of a community has so many benefits. Many of us have realized that during COVID even more than we had beforehand, seeing how people banded together to help each other in various ways. One of the most important facets of communal life, which sometimes is not focused on as much, is that through our attitudes and our behaviors, we can help each other to grow. We can help each other to come closer to Hashem. We can help each other as individuals to achieve Kedusha and help to infuse our community as a whole with Kedusha as well. The kind of awesome results that Hashem hoped for in gathering the Jewish people to hear Kedoshim to you, the kind of awesome vision that the Ma'or Vashemesh had for the heights of Kedusha that could be achieved only in community, is possible right here for us as well. It happens already and can happen even more by all of us making an effort to come to shiurim on Zoom and in person, to come to minyanim on Shabbos and minyanim during the week, to come to events that promote and support the Torah and mitzvahs we hold so dear, so that those activities are robust and successful, and also so that they are transformed into activities that are viewed by everyone as a mainstay and vital component of our lives. It happens already and can happen even more by all of us not being ashamed of the areas in which we want to grow religiously, and not being afraid of what it might entail or how it might change us, and without needing to overthink it and anticipate every complexity that could arise, but by just trying it and seeing what happens. It happens already and can happen even more by all of us opening ourselves up to learning from others, to watching others, and what makes them successful in Kedusha, and by trying to take baby steps to reach those levels of those that we look up to. It happens already and can happen even more by all of us simultaneously serving as role models and leading by example, or by us gently and appropriately asking others to join us in growing, to join us in activities of Kedusha. We shouldn't assume that people who are less engaged are disinterested or opposed, but instead hope that if given the opportunity, especially within the context of friendship or family, that they might be happy to engage in Kedusha alongside us. It happens already and can happen even more by all of us congratulating and promoting and complimenting others who we see trying to grow and showing them how inspiring they are to us and to others. The command to be holy is not the province of the few or of the elite or of those who have been doing it well for years, but as the Alshich points out, it's the province of each and every Jew at their own time and level and in their own way. As we hear those words of Kedoshim to you this Shabbos, it's up to us to take the first steps and carve out our own path to climbing the ladder of Kedusha. The command to be holy is given specifically, El Kol Adas B'nai Israel, because as the Ma'or Vashemesh points out, we need each other in order to grow in Kedusha. We need each other's support and encouragement. We need role models and we need friends. Kedoshim to you. Let us all be holy, not just by deciding to engage in Torah and mitzvos and tefillah and chesed and all other acts of Kedusha by ourselves, but to do so with others, to join together and do so as part of our wonderful community here, so that we can all benefit from each other in the process of growing closer to Hashem. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.